Hey, on today's episode of Body Bangin', we are talking about a hot topic. We've discussed it before, and I'm going to take a couple of old clips that I did and put them together for you today because we are talking about this labor shortage. Every single person that I know that's in our industry is talking about this. So I thought rather than talk about something different, and there's a lot of great topics out there, we've already had some really great talent on the podcast and they were done earlier in the year. So I have a feeling you guys probably forgot what they talked about, but they are gems and I want to bring them back. We've got two guests that you're going to hear from. One of my guests was Andrew Batenhorst. He works with Pacific BMW, which is a CCRC shop. He manages that shop. And then we also have Steve Olson, the owner of Louisville Collision Center. And we talk with him also about how he's kind of dealing with the shortage. And again, we talked with these guys months and months ago, and things have gotten so much worse. But everything they are saying still holds true. So I think it's a great reminder for us. One thing that I'm not putting the excerpt of in this podcast, but I recommend you go back and check out his podcast, was Brandon Eckenrode. If you don't have the time, that's cool. But one thing to note is, and I'm going to put his contact information below in the notes, the show notes. He is affiliated with the Collision Repair Education Foundation, also called CREF, C.R.E.F., and they work with local trade schools. If you are a shop that has a local trade school near you, take advantage of this. I'm in Southern California and there aren't hardly any around us. So we are so jealous of places where they exist because they actually help place students in shops. And the program is amazing. So you can reach out to Brandon and see if there's a local school. He oftentimes does, I forget exactly what he calls them, but like an open house type thing, a job fair type thing where you can get involved and potentially recruit some people to come and work at your facility. It's incredible. So stay tuned. We're going to have a little flashback right now back to Andrew, and then we're going to hop on over to Steve and hear what they have to say about how you can combat this war on talent.
Welcome to Body Bangin', your podcast for all things body. Auto body, that is. And now, introducing Body Bangin's host, Mickey Woods of Mickey Woods Marketing. Mickey is a former auto collision center owner and is now a marketing and business development expert to shops across the globe.
Now, we already had, like you were saying, there was already a lot of tension there trying to get good quality techs and painters and estimators and every position really. And now you've got this unemployment thing where why should they work if they can just sit at home and collect a check and sometimes making more money than they were making even in their position. So now the heat's on. And like you said, then we see a lot of unethical practices happening of throwing money at people to get them to come aboard, poaching. I mean, we've always been an industry of stealing employees.
Yes. Yeah. But it's like, it's the unspoken. Nobody talks about that. I've been approached many times in various training environments where there's specific things that say, do not talk about recruiting. You'll be asked to leave.
Yes.
And I witness it. I've been approached. Jobbers, equipment salespeople, the guys that maintain spray boot. I mean, it doesn't matter who it is. Everybody knows somebody that may want to move around.
Yeah.
And you can sometimes, as a manager, you don't realize that person may be in your shop to do something, a jobber, a vendor, whoever, and they may be planting a little seed in your employee's head. Hey, are you happy here? Yeah. Oh, no, you're not? Okay, well, hey, I got a guy that's he's willing to pay top money for you.
Absolutely. So we know that the issue is there. I think there's some identifying factors as to why it's there. But then the core issue is then what the heck do we do about it? Because if you want to keep doing, so you as a shop manager, you can keep doing things the right way, right? And go about it the right way. But yet you're going to watch, you probably have gone through it to some degree. You're just going to watch your people get poached.
It just happened to me 2 weeks ago. My paint department's been gutted. I just lost my painter and one of my best helpers. And it's it's very, very hard to obviously replace a key role. Not just any role really right
Yes.
now. It's tough, and it makes you wonder, like, what did I do wrong? What could I have done different? And in my case, I second guess myself because I try to be the best at what I do, and it
Yeah.
makes me go back to evaluate my style as a leader and how well did we compensate this person? What kind of feedback did I give or didn't give? Things like that, and it's tough. I
Yeah.
think and I'll be frank, I think it's only going to get worse. I don't think it's going to get better. And that's the unfortunate truth, because I think as a whole, we have not made this industry attractive to work in. So when you think about what we do to entice people to come work for us, a lot of people tell me all the time, money is not my number one motivator. Having responsibility, having the opportunity to grow, knowing I'm being cared for in my job, and there's all these other factors that affect employee engagement. And I think for a lot of people, it's unfortunately the grass is greener mentality takes precedent for a lot of younger techs that maybe they get promised during a trade school seminar, or they get visited by somebody that says, "Hey, you graduate, there's 100K waiting for you as soon as you get out." And they hinge on that, and they seek to go to that.
Yeah.
And it may not be the right thing to look for when you're a younger person to go out.
Yeah, absolutely. Money will only take you so far because if you're not being fulfilled, we talk about value, money has value, but there's a lot of other things that are really valuable. And I think you're 100% right in the industry having to make our industry attractive in general, but then having managers and owners who have to really grasp the fact that it's more than just that check. We've really got to start taking people into the fold. Now, do you know, and you can answer and not answer this, but do you know why your people left? Was it mainly financial? Because I know that you're really invested in your people.
Oh, big time. I mean, this shop, any CCRC or take even BMW out of it and look at any high-end collision center that's invested in equipment, training,
Yes.
their people. In my case, it was salary. They were thrown a ridiculous amount of money. There was no possible way I could compete with that. And that says a lot, because in the CCRC world, we pay pretty healthy. I mean, there are painters deep into the six figures, which in a lot of other shops is not heard of.
Yes.
And also the same with body techs. There's body techs that pull in above 130, 140,000 a year in our world. That's normal. So for someone to come in and steamroll over me on top of what we already think is a pretty healthy salary says a lot about what's going on. So that in and of itself, it's hard, because this dealer is very progressive in how we take care of our people and how we support them and develop them. But for some, that's like, if they feel that they're maybe being underpaid and someone comes in and it's like, "Oh, I heard that I could make this much," it changes everything very quickly.
Yes. Well, and how do you compete with that? I mean, especially for small independent shops, how are they ever going to compete with that? They just don't have it in the budget.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking, but some of these other shops do have the funds. So then it'll be interesting. The question kind of floats to the top of my mind. How long can they keep that up? Because
exactly.
I'm going to promise you this, but how long are they going to be able to pay that if, there's only so much profit margin in a body shop?
That's right.
So
that's what we don't get, right?
Yeah.
When someone comes in with one of these ludicrous job offers to somebody, and it's like, how long can that be sustained? And especially, if it's a shop that's still struggling like we are to get through the pandemic, our volume is super inconsistent right now. We see some days are great, it's feast or famine sometimes, and we don't know, we can't forecast very well in terms of how things are going to be, because we're still not through all this yet.
100%. Yeah.
So that's where it's like, you got to, when you're trying to keep these people on your bus, so to speak, or on your boat, whatever you want to call it, in your shop, you have to have a frank conversation with them. And in my case, they didn't want to hear what I had to say. They were sold by what the other owner or manager promised them, and that was enticing enough for them to leave what we were offering here.
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of people, especially right now, are looking for stability because the world really has been in such a state of stress and worry. And I think everybody's looking for stability. I mean, we as shop owners and managers, marketers, I would love to have some stability. And I can tell you, Andrew, with shops across the country, there's no stability anywhere. I
Right.
mean, one day you're up, the next day you're down. There's no rhyme or reason. We're used to being cyclical, seasonal.
Yeah. Yeah.
To a degree, we don't have it in California like some other states,
Right.
but still, we have our cycles. This is a whole nother thing. And techs, painters who are used to working on commission, that type of thing, they're not able to get any type of consistency or the consistency that they'd like.
Right.
So when they get that big draw or the draw of the money of that big check for them, it's solving an immediate emotional need,
Yes.
the stress that takes it away because they probably have a family to care for.
Right.
So I understand it. But like you just said, you and I both just talked about, how long does that last for? And then at the end of the day, what type of culture have they now signed themselves up to be a part of?
Exactly. That's a big order to fill, right?
Yeah.
That's a big promise that you're making to that person. And some of these employees don't, they may be young and they may
Yes.
not know, is there a contract to sign? What are the legal
Right.
ramifications behind this decision if this
Yes.
shop backs out of it? And if I relocate and I brought my family with me and all this stuff, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, now what do I do? And in some cases, a bridge may have been burned, not
Mhm.
intentionally,
Mhm.
or there's no longer a spot to go back to.
Right.
Now you've got to reevaluate your whole decision process about what you're going to do to get back up on the horse.
Yeah. Well, and I have friends in the industry who went through that when I was younger and who were techs and managers and whatever. And they got the big draw of the paycheck and they've schlepped their whole family somewhere and got there. And it is not what they thought it was going to be. And sometimes that paycheck is just not worth it. But you don't know sometimes until you get there.
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes, a lot of times, we take for granted, like they say, you don't know what you have until it's gone, until
Yeah.
you've lost it. And like you said, sometimes the position is not there to go back to. So when it comes to, we were talking about like the three prongs of the issue, this, employment issue, and we talk about employees. Do you have any suggestions for what employees should be, anything more than kind of what we talked about, what they should be thinking of or what they should be doing? Because I'm sure the offers are very attractive, but you
Of
and I both
course.
know I've
Yeah.
been offered jobs before making big, big bucks, but I'm like, my sanity is worth something also.
Yes. Right. So that's really what it comes down to, a conversation first. So and ideally, it should never get to that point where it's gone too far with no conversation about advancement,
Yes.
compensation, and where you stand with your manager.
Right.
That's obviously that's going to accelerate their decision to leave. But if you're an
Mhm.
employee and you're in this spot and you're trying to figure out what to do, you maybe talk to someone who's gone through that. Whether it may not be your manager if you're trying to give a more neutral opinion. If you have a buddy that you met through training or someone, a more senior technician in the shop that has experienced that already in their career, you can bounce that off of them. But from the moment that you get that offer, and you're going to be under a time constraint, right? Because that's the
Yeah.
classic trick. That's, if
Yes.
you want this, you got to give me an answer by Friday, and it's Tuesday, right? And you go home and you're like, you're got to talk to your wife or your husband or your significant other, or you got to talk to your buddy or find out, I'll do all this research about this shop. And this could be just a conversation. There's nothing in writing. And it's like, I got to uproot my whole life for this. And I don't even know what's going to really be there for me at the end of the rainbow, so to speak. And that is not easy. And like I said, most of my shop, we're mainly millennials. I only have one guy that's in his 60s, but he's very youthful in how he approaches his work and all that. So he gets along great with the rest of my crew.
Yeah.
But they've come to me regularly saying, Andrew, what do we, I have this. What do I do? And it makes bringing up compensation and growth and development straight to the forefront of the situation to figure out, what do you want out of this? Are you serious? Does it, a lot of them just like to know, yeah, I'm desirable. that feels good, right? To get
Yeah.
somebody else to know that, hey, I heard about you from so and so. You're a really good tech, or you're a really good writer, or a painter.
Hey, would you like to increase the number of cars in your drive? Well, look no further. The Mickey Woods marketing team provides collision center specific marketing. We use proven techniques to not only increase your sales, but put money in your pocket. Visit us at collisioncentermarketing.com, or you can find my personal contact information in the show notes. And let's get your 2022 off to a body banging start.
That's a good, reassuring feeling, but it has to be properly analyzed, and
Yeah.
and not, even if you are under a time constraint, you've got to be able to step back and not let the money do all the talking for you, and to
Yes.
win you over on your decisions. So I mean, it's not like a one size fits all, because your relationship with your manager may or may not be that good. Some employees aren't
Mm,
confident to go talk about salary or to talk about advancement or anything like that, because they've been let down by their manager before. And that may not be so easy to then, some may just internalize this and say, you know what, in the past I asked for a raise, they didn't do anything. Yeah, I'm gonna go. This seems to, this is a real good deal, and I'm gonna take it.
yeah. And I think that's something good to note for managers to remember that, especially with the younger generation coming up. And I've talked about this in a couple of my podcasts, but I see it very clearly when I'm in my shops and I'm talking with the younger generation specifically. We all want to know that we're appreciated. We all want to know that we're part of the team. But one thing that I see more in the younger generation is they want to know that there's a plan for them. Like they need those regular check-ins and like, okay, what do I need to do to get to the next level? Because most of them don't want to just be here forever. Where it's almost as if going back in time, people went and worked for an organization and they worked there for the entirety of their career. They never really ever thought about leaving. That is not the way the world works now.
That's
And
my dad. My dad's been
yeah,
in the same job for 42 years. And that's and that's
same.
and that's
Yeah.
he grew that way, and he's basically part of the building. And that's not like
Yes.
that anymore. And I agree completely, because if you don't have a plan for your employees and they don't feel like you're invested in them, yeah, that's going to help hasten their decision to leave. And
Yeah.
to look at it from a manager's perspective. I know I said earlier that it seems like it's going to get worse, but you have a choice at the end of the day of how you engage with your team,
Yeah.
what you do to build that engagement, and how you lay out a roadmap for your
Right.
people. So
Right. I
obviously you
agree.
got to have the right equipment. The shop has to be safe. You got to do, those are just standard things. It's like when people were saying like blueprinting and repair planning is going to revolutionize the collision industry. Yeah, well, that's now the normal. That's the bare minimum. Now
Right.
you got to
Right.
now you got to go above that.
Yes.
That's no longer to tell an employee, yeah, we'll give you a 401k, we'll give you health insurance and all that. Again, those are just the minimum. You
Yes.
really do more. And as I said earlier, we have not made this an attractive industry to work in. So to separate us, or for managers to kind of put our hands up against the dam of this onslaught of offers and people trying to take your employees, you got to start with yourself. That's how I look at it. And what
Yeah.
are you doing as a manager for your team? What are you
Right.
doing to keep them there? What are you doing to engage them? How do you understand how they feel? What are their pain points in the shop? A lot of my guys, they'll say like, a tech just told me the other day, I don't have, I need razor blades to do my job, or I need something, that a material, and it takes too long to get it or whatever. Okay, well, let's figure out how to fix that. If that's a stress point for them, yeah, that may seem like that may get overlooked by a manager who's trying to make the numbers to keep the owner happy or whatever. But yeah, that affects them. And if you show empathy to their situation, that could change the dynamic. They feel like you care,
Yeah.
stepping into their world.
Right. I agree. I agree 100%. Making sure that we're staying in touch, not just like physically, like, hey, how are you? But like you said, being emotionally attuned to know what their pain points are so that we can meet them where they're at. it's kind of like in any relationship that we have. If we can be aware where the other person is really struggling, then especially as a manager, we need to come in and be that support. And a lot of times they just want to know that you're there. And this would allow then for a shop like yours, so you don't have these huge pockets that maybe this other person that came in and offered this big money, but you can only control what you can control. So if we can control our actions, like you said, you can just be responsible for yourself. So if we can control those things, be engaged, be caring about the things that they care about, like you said, providing the 401k and the health insurance and that kind of thing, it's almost now those are like basics, even though the industry as a whole doesn't, which is really interesting. But there are other ways that we can provide value to people is basically what I'm saying, beyond just the money, because we can't just make money and that we can't grow a money tree out in the back.
Yeah, that's why I think EQ, emotional intelligence, is something that a lot of managers don't really want to delve into, because it's a very introspective look at how they lead and how in tune or out of tune they are with what's happening in their shop. I mean, I have a very technical background. I love cars even outside of work, and I've always been wrenching on my own stuff. So that is a natural passion for me there. But when it comes to being a leader now, I find more of my time is spent trying to be in tune with what's going on with my team, to try, obviously, to keep them here and to keep them engaged and motivated and inspired. That has paid more dividends doing that work than it is like dealing with putting on my fireman's hat to put out a parts problem.
Exactly.
Disagreement with an insurance company or whatever that may be. And that, for me, and I can't speak for all managers, but in my experience, that has been kind of a way that I've been able to navigate around this insanity that I see happening in the
It really does feel like insanity sometimes, I tell you. Well, I appreciate you coming and talking about it. I know that there are a lot of shop owners and managers, and we're all suffering because the whole shop suffers when we're short-staffed, everybody, and the customer does also. So it's not just a you and me problem. This really affects everybody. So
even dealerships, service departments, it doesn't matter. And it even goes far beyond just our industry too.
Yes.
I mean, it's everyone. But
absolutely. But I'm glad that we were able to talk about it a little bit today. Hopefully we gave some other people out there some ideas of ways that they can potentially connect and provide value beyond just the dollar amount. But I will tell you, there's something to be said about paying your people a decent wage and paying them more, because there are a lot of, especially smaller independents, that are trying to get by, or just some shops that are just trying to save money, that if they can pony up the extra money, even though it's not the big money that some of these guys are using, if you can pay a couple dollars an hour more than some of the other places, you will be able to get and then maintain with some other value propositions. I think you'll be able to retain better techs. And I see a lot better quality and a lot happier people when you got a decent paycheck to go home with, and you're getting all those things that you're talking about. Now, then somebody coming and poaching them makes it much more difficult.
Of course. The two things have to go hand in hand: fair compensation, good benefits, a manager that cares. All these things kind of interconnect together to make it a cohesive thing. And you kind of build your fortress around your shop to guard it from these outside influences that you can't, in many cases, you can't control.
Right.
If you take those steps, like we've discussed, that can put a pretty good dent in protecting you for what's going on out there.
I hope you guys liked what Andrew had to say. I think he covered a lot of things that all of us feel like, oh yeah, I feel that, I get it, I'm living it. So next up we have Steve Olson. Steve Olson is managing partner of Louisville Collision Center, and I'm just sharing with you a small piece of the episode I did with him. I really recommend, if you're a shop owner or manager of any capacity, production manager, whatever, that you go and listen to his full episode, because he talks a lot about a whole bunch of different stuff. We talk about social media. We talk about managing. We talk about production. We talk about and being a non-DRP shop and diversifying yourself. A lot of really great things, but I do want you to hear what he has to say about the labor shortage and how they are dealing with it where he's at. So stay tuned for what's up next. So I have a question for you. I know that there's not a ton of collision centers in your area where you're at. Obviously, you have some competition, and we have a technician shortage in the United States. Where are you finding your people? Because I imagine it's tricky.
It was tricky. So when I got here, it was a major culture change. Unfortunately, the guy who was the leader before me, the guy who was the general manager before me, he just wasn't here enough. And so the guys, it was kind of really ran the shop, did what they wanted. If they had side work, it didn't matter. It was just kind of the inmates run the asylum, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
And they needed to see that their boss was going to be here the entire time. Their boss was going to work hard. Their boss was going to come in here and literally try and make their life better. And so I can look back from, the pre-year 2019 and say that, 95% of our team had their best financial year of their career with us. And it coincided with the business having its best year. But it worked that way because we are dedicated to helping our employees succeed. Mm-hmm. It's not, hey, if we beat the crap out of you, we're going to have a great year. It's, hey, we're going to help you be successful so that we can be successful. Yeah. And if you run it up front correctly and you manage your expenses and you do all the small things, but you take care of your people, you don't need to. So when I got here, there were 28 people here and only 5 of them stayed over the course of 2 years.
Oh, wow.
And so we started, and I wanted people that really wanted to be part of what we were doing. And honestly, once we found the people that we wanted here, we really don't worry about leaving. We take care of them. We're invested in them and their families, and we genuinely care about them and want to see them be successful. So they understand that, they realize that, and we feel like we give them an atmosphere and a pay plan and benefits and things that are better than they can get anywhere else, right?
Yeah, that's right. Marsh, the owner of Valley Motor Center, did things very similarly. He took such good care of his employees that he didn't ever need to go look for an employee. Employees came knocking on his door, hoping to God that they could get in on what we as the employees were experiencing. Sure. Yeah. I mean, at Christmas time, he would give cash bonuses out of his own pocket. So we didn't have to pay taxes on it. And we got, I think it was like 1% of what we made all year. We were freaking stoked, at Thanksgiving, a gift card. He was all about he took care of us like we were family, and we appreciated it. So then when it's on our side, we worked as hard as we could and gave it our all because we were working for him and we believed in him and that culture. And that's exactly what you're talking about. What you're giving out and what you're putting out to your employees, they're going to give back. And so it's an interesting answer you gave. In a technician shortage, you're not having to worry about it because you don't have people dropping like flies, because you're not out there cracking the whip and having a whiskey in your office with your feet up yelling at people. You're out there when it's snowing and you're scooping the sidewalks and, you're sweeping the store if you need to. You get your hands dirty and they see that you're not above them. You don't think you're above them. And that's incredible. Weren't you the one that posted about you out in the snow the other day?
Yeah, I think you have to lead on the same level. It can't be I'm in the 3rd floor and I'm screaming down at you and let's do this. You have to be on the same line, pulling with them and showing them that you're willing to do those things as well. If there's a part at one of our dealerships and we need it for the car to go home, I'll go run and go get it. It doesn't matter. Whatever helps them to continue to move forward. It helps us. It helps the technician. It helps the business. And keep in mind that technician, probably is worth, each technician's worth, $75,000 in sales per month. Even at 40% gross profit, that's $30,000 a month in gross profit. Those people are hard to find. And if you get good ones, take care of them so they don't have to leave. I mean, that's ultimately the goal, to have a good staff, to fight the turnover. The turnover will just kill you, having to constantly train, plus the cost of certification and training. Take care of your people, show them that you're willing to work hard for them, and they'll want to stay part of what you're doing.
Absolutely. So I hope you enjoyed today's flashback episode where we're talking about the labor shortage. If you enjoyed yourself, which I'm sure you did, make sure that you subscribe, follow. You can also rate this podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts and you go to our main page, scroll all the way down to the bottom, I would love it if you could give it a rating. Hopefully 5 stars. And if you can write something, even better. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks for the next episode of Body Bangin'. Love y'all. Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We have some incredible topics and guests coming your way you will not want to miss. If you are watching on YouTube and don't want to miss the latest and greatest, you'll want to hit the bell after subscribing, so you will get a pop-up each time a video podcast goes live. To our devoted fans, would you mind paying it forward and sharing this little gem with someone else you think may benefit from it? Much love from all of us here at Body Bangin', all things auto body.